Where did this idea even come from?
Well,
It's a wild story, kind of. When she brought it to us, we were probably like 15. So it's kind of like, can we do this?
Tell me why the Playful Palette Foundation is important.
Art itself is such a privilege, and everyone should have kind of like a bite of that privilege.
Welcome to the Best of White Rock, where we sit down with the standout business owners, community leaders, and entrepreneurs shaping life here in White Rock and South Surrey for the better. These are their stories behind the people driving real change in our community. Hosted by me, Darren German of the German Group. I was really looking forward to having the three of you on the show because number one, I'm so impressed with what you've done. We're going to get into the what of you're doing, but like what you've built, what you're doing for the community, the youth of the community more specifically, and just the drive and the ambition. I'm so fascinated on where that comes from and how you even got there. So I'm going to let you start talking a little bit here. Please let everybody know who you are and what the Playful Palette Foundation does.
The Playful Palette Foundation is essentially, it's a youth-led organization specific to White Rock and Surrey that gives kids access to free arts programs. So like we work with different companies to give kids direct arts programming, like dance lessons, acting lessons, singing lessons, music lessons, things like that. And to like fund that, we often do like big fundraisers in our community and stuff like that.
Okay. So where did this idea even come from?
Well,
It's a wild story, kind of.
yeah, I think all of us had come in for different reasons because originally it was 7 of us that had founded it. Mm-hmm. I think my first idea was that like I have been in theater since the 4th grade and it's been the most important thing in my life for as long as I can remember. And I saw so many kids have to leave that art and I didn't think that was fair.
Why did they have to leave?
Because it's really expensive.
Really expensive, meaning like did the school stop funding it, or is it expensive for the families to be a part of it?
In the school like district, arts programs aren't that common, especially theater programs. Like a lot of schools either have a really, really poor theater schools or they don't have anything at all, especially for younger people, like elementary schools and stuff like that. So I'm more talking about like outside of school, like the arts programs that kids go into because there are not that many opportunities inside of school are really expensive. The theater school I was part of was like upwards of like $2,000 a year.
Oh my goodness. So you saw like a lot of kids were struggling to do something they love just simply because of the costs associated with doing such. Mm-hmm. So that led you to what?
That I then just kind of had an idea that I was like, I have to make a change. I have to make sure these kids are able to do do programs like this. So at first I was like, is there a way to volunteer in an organization that already does what we're doing? But there wasn't really anything. And so then I was like, I guess we have to do it ourselves. So that's when I pitched it to like other people.
Yeah.
So you both got brought on board. What was your first impression of this idea to help raise funds for kids? I'm kind of thinking like performing arts type stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, so what was your first impressions when you heard about this idea?
Well, my first impression was obviously that I thought it was kind of like a big thing to do because when she brought it to us, we were probably like 15. So it's kind of like, can we do this really? Like realistically, would people take us seriously? But I think that after she talked about the idea more, I was like really convinced because I was in dance lessons when I was younger and I also had to stop because of the cost. It was just like really expensive because you have to pay for multiple classes, the higher levels you go, and costumes and just like a bunch of things. So it gets really complicated.
All right.
So I just wanted to help with that because I have it's a personal thing as well. And then there's lots of opportunities for kids who are in sports. I'm also a kid who was in sports, so I kind of saw how on that side of myself, I got a lot of support when I was doing sports, but not as much when I was doing the arts because of the cost and just like lack of awareness for how much it costs.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's such a true thing. Like I think of Canadian Tire as an example. I think that Jumpstart program is all about kids in sports and whatnot, but there's just so many of them. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember when we were doing kind of our pre-call, you had brought that up and it was like a light bulb. I'm like, yeah, you really don't see anything like that. Like there's not a really good opportunity to help these kids stay in these programs that, foster their creativity and allow them to express themselves. And it's like all privatized, right? It's kind of good luck, hope your parents can afford it sort of thing. Mm-hmm. What about you, Alex?
My story is a bit different because I wasn't one of the original founders of the nonprofit. And essentially like with the whole messaging of the nonprofit and its goal to kind of give children access to the arts, I felt like that was a really important message because when I was around 12, I moved here and I lost and I was in theater and art for like literally growing up. So when I kind of lost that community, it was really difficult to navigate outside that circle. And when I kind of heard that Sabine was doing this kind of like thing where she was helping children kind of get that community, because theater itself is such like a diverse and strong community and very supportive. So I was like really on board with that. Even though I also kind of agree with Eva, it was kind of like really difficult to kind of wrap your head around how are we going to be able to achieve this since we're so young.
Yeah, well, I'll being that young at that time, I remember being that young one time too. Like you feel almost helpless, and like you don't have the ability to make a change.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe sometimes because too you just haven't seen that pathway on how to do that. It's foreign to us, right? Like, and it's such an age of authority, meaning like you go to school every day and somebody tells you what to do. You get up in the morning, your parents tell you what to do, where to be. You know, you've got sports or theater or music, and they're told to be there, and the instructor tells you what to do, and you're growing up in this very authoritative kind of environment, not that purposefully necessarily, but that's kind of how it is. And you sit there and you feel no empowerment to do anything. What was it for the three of you, or maybe on an individual basis, where it finally clicked and said, I can do something about this?
I think probably after our first variety show.
Yeah, I agree.
What was the variety show?
So every year we host an annual variety show at the White Rock Players Club that is like 20-ish acts that come together, perform, do one little like something, and then go off. And then we have an MC in between, kind of introducing everybody, kind of like a talent show, but more of a professional level.
Okay.
And that was our first ever fundraiser that we had hosted. It was our first annual variety show. And we kind of went into it being like, is this something we're actually going to be able to pull off? Like, hello, it's a show at the White Rock Players Club. We have to sell 200 tickets. Like, and then we have to organize all of these volunteers and all of these, like, performers. That's going to be so difficult. But the White Rock Players Club, they believed in us, and other people believed in us, and she kind of showed us that we could take that initiative, and we could do it. And although, yes, because that was our first everything we did, it was really stressful. And like the week before, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. This is awful. Right. The moment we were able to finish and be like, wow, this is something that we actually completed, I think that showed us that we don't have to wait to take lead.
Isn't that special? And so many things in life are just getting the repetitions in. And now that you have that one repetition under your belt, my understanding is a lot of the fundraising that you do to support the organization it's strictly fundraising, is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what sorts of things happen? So you've got this big thing that happens typically in the summer at the White Rock Players Club, and that's a yearly thing?
Winter, yeah.
Oh, it's in the winter. Okay. All right. So is that kind of the marquee event, or is there other things that you do typically throughout the year to help fund this organization?
I would say that's our highlight event, like the one that gets the most traction, and that's the one that kind of like put our name out there. And I think the thing that we're most proud about too, because it was the first idea that we came up with. And then we typically do something in the summer, an event, and then a gala in like the fall time.
What's the gala look like? Tell me about the gala.
It was fun.
We only done one so far. That we did it in November this year. It was really fun. We did For the Love of the Arts. So we had like performers, different speeches, all things that were centered around like why the arts are important in our local community. But it was a little bit difficult because it was on the same day as one of the I think the Sources Gala. So that was a little bit difficult.
You learn to check the calendar sometimes on stuff. Yeah. Okay, so this big gala is happening, and that's one of your big fundraising events as well.
Oh yeah.
What happens after a fundraising event? So you've been able to, for the generous donations of the people showing up or participating in the community sort of thing. Tell me a little bit about what happens. We've had this successful event. How do we actually give back to the community? What does that look like? I
think it really depends on the time of year. Often, because most arts programs are year long, they start in September. Our funding normally stays like kind of in the bank, or we'll kind of try to accumulate it with other smaller events throughout the year, so that in September we can put as many kids in full year programs as possible, because as much as like summer programs, week-long programs are impactful, they don't make the same difference that like year-long programs does, especially because if a kid goes into a week-long program and they love it, but then we can't put them in another program right away, that's going to break their heart. And so we try to do lots of September programming. So right now, like we had a variety show, but we're kind of keeping that money in the bank so that once we get to September time, we can put some new kids in arts programs.
Okay. And so a lot of these programs typically take place in the fall so they can kind of carry through the year and have a little bit of a longer experience in the program sort of thing. How do kids get selected for these programs?
Well, they can apply through our website. And sometimes they even personally reach out to us. On our website, we have a whole page dedicated to apply. And it's actually pretty straightforward. You just kind of have to put your name in, your email, and what programs you're looking for. And then you'll be in contact with us through direct email. And we try and help place your child into as many or whatever program they desire to.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it usually the parents that are reaching out in this regard?
Yeah, it is most of the time the parents. Yeah.
Okay. Do you normally try and spread the opportunities out amongst more people, or do you kind of say, hey, this person's special and we want to support them as much as we can? How does that work?
Well, most of the time we look towards to help people who are struggling to finance their kids. So I guess we're looking more at low income communities. But if with no really special privileges to anybody really specific, if there's a kid who needs our help, we try and make that as fair as possible and to give every single kid a chance.
But also what we do is we try to make partnerships with businesses that provide those programs so that we can maybe get those kids in at a discount, or maybe whatever they just need for production costs, but they're willing to kind of make a donation to us by letting kids in at a discount. We try to get the cheapest options possible and as many kids involved in programming as possible. So I know we had one person who wanted us to pay for her entire year of competitive dance, but because that cost $6,000 or $7,000, we were not able to do that because that $6,000 could help 10 or 12 kids. And so we want to try to do whatever is going to blanket help the most people.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess maybe at a point you kind of have to say, when you want to get into these really specialty or really high level things, as much as we want to support, it's a community driven initiative. And to your point, you want to help as many people as possible. And I'm sure that's not easy discussion. I mean, the triaging of that is I'm sure difficult, but necessary, right? You're giving away opportunity to many other people in that regard if you just kind of go to the one. So it does seem to make a lot of sense, but it can't be easy.
It's not. It's very difficult. I know when we had to tell that girl that we couldn't help fund that, she was it was really sad because we just we want to be able to help her. And she's why can't you help us? And we're well, we don't have that funding available for that. We don't even have that much money right now in the bank. But honestly, I really want to support all the people, but then you have to just make the decision that's going to make the most sense, because by supporting that one person, inherently you're making it so that you won't have enough funding to support all the other kids that are going to get involved.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I love what you were saying too. I want to understand a little bit more about the community. So as an example, you were talking about when you're finding these opportunities for these kids to go in, whether it's dance or art or music or whatever that might be, you're kind of relying a little bit on the local businesses to help out a little bit in that regard too. You're not saying, hey, look, we want a free ride or something like that, but can you help us out a bit financially here as well? Maybe you don't charge the full pop sort of thing. Can you give us the wholesale price or whatever? So do you find yourself with a lot of community partnerships, or is that hard to really find people that'll participate in that?
I think it's difficult, but it happens because some of the businesses, they just don't answer you when you try to talk to them, but those businesses, there's so many dance companies and there's so many acting courses to find. So if we only have one in each realm, that's enough. Right now we have an acting course that we partner with. We do 50-50 with them. And then we also work with another dance company. We do 50-50 with them. But that's enough. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because we don't have to put kids in a specific course at a specific studio. We can put them in that studio because it's still dance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that you got the community showing up for you in that regard as well. Because selling tickets to events is hard, and people are busy, and there might be another event going on at the same time. You never. I know when we plan events for our real estate business, it's is there a Canucks game happening? Is there a Lions game? We did one time, and the Grey Cup was on that day, and we didn't even think about it. There's always something going on. So to have the community kind of supporting you in that regard is interesting. And what I really loved about when we kind of did our onboarding call to get together today, we had talked a little bit about the opportunities you've also created, not only just for kids in the community that wanted to kind of advance it or try out the performing arts, but also about people and how they can show up and be part of the solution, part of the Playful Palette Foundation. Can you expand on that maybe a little bit for me?
I think Alex is a great example of that. Like Alex, we had invited him to volunteer for our first ever variety show. He came and did our tech for us, and then we asked him to like maybe do some marketing things for us later on. And then he started getting more and more involved. He came to the sing along, and then after that, we were like, "Do you want to get involved in the actual organization?" And then he did.
Yeah. It was kind of like a year-long process, I can't lie. There was like ups and downs and all different types of like, with my time schedule and whatever was going on. But I felt like at the end of the day, like I really put so much effort and hard work into the nonprofit, and I want it to succeed as well as like, and help it succeed as much as I could as well. So I felt like that was a no-brainer to join at the end of the day.
Especially because he did make most of our posters. So he was basically on board without having a title. So
free labor. There you go. That's what you need.
Pretty much.
Well, and you'd also mentioned too about the opportunity, like the volunteering, and like maybe not everybody's like Alex, where they're willing to give back their time without some sort of compensation or reward, and some recognition. And you had mentioned too that there was something about credits, like when people come and volunteer, that they could get credits towards
university.
Was it university?
Yeah, like volunteer hours.
Tell me how that works.
So basically, for universities like UBC, for example, they really look at how people are involved in the community and whatnot. So a lot of our volunteers are just like a bunch of our friends, and we just give them a lot of opportunities so that they can show that they've helped us a lot, and hopefully that will help them. So we love to do that for people. Yeah,
and they're able to use these credits how, like when they get to university, like what does that provide them with?
It just, in your university applications, you have to you have a list of like things that you're involved in, and if you don't have very many like volunteer things or like initiative driven things, they don't often like accept students even if you have a high GPA. So students often look for like volunteer hours just so they can say, I help support a youth-led organization, and that will help them in terms with their application process for university. So like stuff like that, but also anything else, just like resume and stuff. And then sometimes we give out awards to our volunteers to try and help them with that as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I agree with the whole like resume thing, because I know like a lot of the times seeing that you have like a youth initiative or you're part of like an organization that actually makes a real change, it can not only show that like you're responsible, but you're also mature enough to handle that kind of like role and responsibility, and can like even open different doors for you as well into other organizations or connections with like people in, I wouldn't say like power, but like MLAs and stuff like that, etc.
Yeah.
Just seeing the initiative and the drive, and that's actually something I want to talk to you three of you about, but seeing the initiative and the drive and the greater goal, the greater good of what you're doing. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm too far removed. I think you all go to the school that I graduated from, I think probably about 24 years ago right now. So where does that come from for the three of you? To want to do an initiative like that, to feel the need that there's a gap. Like I know you talked about your personal experience and all your personal experiences kind of and the funding and whatnot. What made you say, I'm going to do something about that? I think just the fact that we all have a lot of friends who are involved in the arts, and like it's a common thing for people that we've known or that we still know to have to drop out because of it. So I think it was kind of just like a realization between everybody where it's like if we all work together, we can make a change, and it's something that's really close to a lot of our hearts. So it's not really like a hassle or something that we're struggling to do. It's something that we want to do. Yeah, it's so fascinating because I would imagine there's so many people that would say, you know what, I'm just going to go, dance is cheap, or, guitar lessons are cheap, or whatever that, or expensive, excuse me, they're expensive. I'm just going to go to the library and get a book instead, or I'm just going to watch Netflix and make this curiosity or this itch go away that I can do something about that. But there's something different about the three of you that caused that or triggered that in you. And it's fascinating to hear that you've seen this with your friends and this loss of opportunity, or even in your own experiences, that this stuff is something that you're so passionate about and that you love, and the opportunity to be able to do it was dwindling, right? As it got more expensive. I think for a lot of us, like wanting to make an impact and wanting to help people has always been important to us. But a lot of the time when we saw problems like this, and it would just be like, just wait until you're older. Just wait. Like, do it later. Right. You don't need to do it right now. But like, problems don't wait until you grow up. And I think for us, it was just like this
problem is so meaningful to us, and if we wait, it's just going to become a larger problem, especially because at the same time we were seeing that music programs were being cut in the Surrey school district too. So like the thing, it's happening and it's a cycle, and the more you wait, the worse it's going to get. And so if we can make an impact now, like there's no point in waiting. That makes no sense. We just have to like start and help people right away.
Why do you think it is that those are the first programs to go? Because you hear about that with the schools.
I feel like I can have a bit of an answer on that, because I feel like in our modern society in general, art isn't valued as much as it was before. We can see that for like, even though it is valued, it has changed how it's been valued, especially with AI coming into that as well. And kind of sports and more STEM driven things such as like, science, math, technology, all that is kind of dominating over the arts factor. And people are forgetting how meaningful art is actually to us. It's literally this building, it's like this chair, this table, that camera, like all of it is designed by someone. It's created by someone. It's art in its own way and sense. And I feel like people are really kind of forgetting that, especially with how our technology is progressing. So I feel like that's the reason why a lot of programs are being cut, is because they're not being seen as valued or high in value, such as like math or science or whatnot.
And then once programs get cut, especially in schools, being involved in the arts becomes like less of a common thing, which also then once it's not as common, people will make fun of people for being in art, and then that will just kind of continue that cycle.
Yeah, I love what you had said there too, because it's almost like a cultural thing that we're losing. Mm-hmm. I often think of, this is a little bit before maybe all your time, but you've probably all been to a wedding before. Yeah. And I know like for my generation, the music would come on and everybody would just sit and watch. And nobody would get up on that dance floor and go enjoy themselves, as an example. Mm-hmm. But you see the older generation, like my parents' generation, and they're just all out there and they're having fun and they're smiling and they're loving it because they grew up in a culture where that happened. And to your point, like if we don't fight to get kids involved in these things and get experience to them, and whether it's, the things that we can see, like you're right, the table and the chair, somebody designed that. Somebody had to have the creativity to do that. Mm-hmm. But it's also the art on the wall, or it's the part of the culture. We had Raul and Cheyenne in the other day, who are dance instructors, and they're trying to bring dance into this community from their community, and that's a piece that's really missing, because we live in a culture out here where it's go to work or go to school, and then you've got stuff to do when you got home that you just got to get done. There's a clock on it. It has to happen. You're lucky if you get an hour a day to do something for yourself, and then it's rinse and repeat and do again. And it doesn't have to be like that. It shouldn't have to be like that.
Yeah, and it's really sad because lots of people who have passions about the arts or like dance or whatnot end up giving it up just because like it's not as valued in society anymore, so it's not feasible for a job or whatever. Like I know a lot of people who would rather be a musician than become, I don't know, like something else, like a stockbroker, but they're giving that up because it's not like feasible anymore. It's not valued.
And we can see that with almost all of our friends too. Mm-hmm. Like we have so many close friends that want to go into acting or filmmaking or directing, but then have just decided that they're not going to do that because they don't have a chance. Yeah. And like even me, like I used to want to go into acting, and now I'm not going into acting because I feel like there's no point. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of sad, but it's kind of just also the reality.
Yeah. I often wonder if that's going to change one day. Mm-hmm. And you hope that it does. I often wonder if there's this pendulum and we're just maybe on the ball is about as far out to the side as it's going to get in that regard. Yeah. And hopefully one day with like initiatives like this, it's going to start swinging back the other way, because we talked a little bit about AI as an example, and like being an actress as an example, like in the world of AI, if there's going to be a want and a need to see real. I don't know about the three of you, you're much younger than I am, but like when I go on social media as an example, I even hate admitting it, but I like to go on X as an example because I like to see the news sometimes, right? It's so quick. But now I find myself looking on there and I don't know what's real. And then I got to go in the comments to see if it's real. And then there's a part of me that goes, well, why am I even doing this? And the reason I'm telling you that is because I want something real. I don't want that manufactured stuff anymore. And I don't want to live in this world where everything is just work and no play and no fun and no culture.
Yeah.
And that's why the arts are so important.
That's
Also
right.
because I think another thing that's really important about the arts, where it's obviously sports are still important, but I think arts really highlight like critical thinking and more like literary like knowledge, if that makes sense. Like I feel like we're losing a lot of comprehension, and like some people can't even read a text anymore and respond with an essay. They just ChatGPT it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like upsetting. And I feel like that is one of the costs of losing a lot of arts programs for kids.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I would imagine too, there's almost probably different parts of your brain that wake up when you're being creative and you're trying these skills, like, you know, trying to read music and then get your body to do the things that you need to do to make the music sound the way that it's supposed to sound, or dancing or anything like that. And it's so good for us socially, mentally, spiritually, all that sort of stuff. And what you're doing is really important, because there's a lot of kids that are going to get to experience that sort of thing that otherwise, you know, maybe wouldn't have.
Yeah.
What's the hardest part about what you're doing right now?
I think something that we can all agree on is it's kind of sometimes hard to balance school and the nonprofit, because like, for example, the variety show always falls like a week or two before our first semester finals. So everybody's just extra stressed out because they've got the show. And then on top of that, like exams. Yeah. And then with the events in the summer, they're also like after our second semester exams. So it's just, sometimes it's hard to like be able to balance it all at once and get everybody going at the same pace and all involved.
And another point I would make is it's also very difficult to be taking it seriously by adults often, because a lot of the time our initiative is only seen as a youth-led initiative and not an initiative on its own. And when we're trying to host things that are professional and at a large scale, if we're not taken fully seriously by the community, it's not going to happen to the same extent. And especially if we're trying to grow, trying to make things larger, we really need to be taken seriously by the community. But a lot of the time it's like, oh, you guys are kids. Well, we still need to do things.
Yeah. So in your words, tell me why the Playful Palette Foundation is important.
Well, in my opinion, it's so important because art itself is such a privilege. And everyone should have kind of like a bite of that privilege in their life, because it is like something that connects us and helps every single person in their own way.
Yeah, and art's kind of all around and you don't even realize it. And I think having the access to art, whether it's like doing drama or dance or playing music, it really helps kids shape who they are and express themselves, which is something that if you cut those programs, they're going to be lacking.
If we hadn't had the arts, we probably wouldn't have had the means to start this organization as a whole, because the arts impacted who we are so exponentially. Like, it literally changed our lives, and we want to make sure those other kids have that same opportunity we did.
What's important to you about this initiative and how it shows up for the community? We live in such a special area of the world. And as I got older, I really recognized that. I had the friends that moved down to Vancouver, moved other provinces, and being in my day job of real estate, where they've all wanted to come back and just be a part of the community that they grew up in, because they recognize how special it is. How does that play a role in what you're trying to create here?
I think White Rock specifically is a little bit also of an older community, but also it's very art-centered. Like, compared to Surrey, we have a lot more, we cherish the arts a lot more. Like, we have an arts and culture advisory committee, we have 2 theaters, we have different things in our community that are there specifically for the arts. And so I think that has helped us a lot make our movement bigger, because we can take these things and the people that love the arts, and we can make sure they want to support us because they know that the arts are important to them, but they can also see that it's not as important to the younger generation. So we have so many adults and a community in White Rock that you probably wouldn't get a lot of other places that want to come together to support our mission. And I think that's really valuable.
Oh, that's really well said. If somebody wants to learn more about the Playful Palette Foundation, maybe check out one of your events, get involved as a volunteer, get involved with fundraising, how do they find you?
Well, you can find us on our Instagram, the Playful Palette Foundation. Also, it's the same on all platforms. And also you can check out our website, theplayfulpalettefoundation.com. as well.
Yeah.
He
And-
designed our website. It's
Actually, it was really nice.
And there's literally like around 6 pages. There's our homepage, which has just a general information about like upcoming things or just general kind of things to know.
We are.
There's also events that we had before and upcoming ones. There's our entire team. There's how to like, right now we're in a hiring process and trying to expand. So there's also a join us page, which like you can apply, to either like just volunteer for us or an exec role. And, and there's also obviously the application page to, you know, if you are willing to kind of like, if you want to get some sort of help from us, you can go there and sign up. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, you're doing something really special for the community. And one of the things I often think about is how lucky we are to live in this community, but it's also people like you three and the people that volunteer with you that make it special and make it unique. And the idea that one day you're walking down the street and somebody recognizes you for all the great things that you're doing. That's a pretty special thing to have. And we're very fortunate to have you all calling this place home. So thank you for everything you do. And it was a pleasure to have the three of you on the show today.
Thank you.
for having us.
Good job.
Yay!
Thank you.
Just hands.